Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talking Pictures with Talking Pictures. I am not Anthony Barnett. As a matter of fact, I am Coley Irving. Anthony Barnett could not join us today. He's busy doing cool, real adult boy stuff. As a matter of fact, some of us are. We have, if you have not figured out by now, we have all kind of begun to go our separate ways. Me and Anthony are both moved into college at the moment. With Jaycee and Shane, both, I'm not exactly sure what you guys are doing, but I know that you're both doing something.
I'm sitting in a chair right now.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's what you mean.
So yes, Anthony cannot join us. He is busy, but he did write us a lovely summary about the movie that we'll be talking about today. And the movie we will be talking about today is a classic. It's a classic amongst many film buffs, amongst film fans in general, and that is the 1962 British film Lawrence of Arabia. Now, you might find yourself asking, Talking Pictures, Lawrence of Arabia, where did that come from? Well, to be honest, I don't know either, which was very surprising when I first found out we were going to talk about Lawrence of Arabia. But ultimately, I found that I was very wrong to have a preconceived notion about this movie because it really is amazing. But that'll come for when we actually talk about the movie. So with me, we don't actually have a table this time. We are doing this wonderful podcast over the interwebs. So I guess to my left is
Jaycee Flowerree.
Yes, he's to my imaginary left. I just signaled to the left. How are you, Jaycee? Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jaycee.
Hi. Hi,
Jaycee. Hi.
We have to do the Alcoholics Anonymous. Hello.
Oh, yes. This is Jaycee. Hi.
Hi, Jaycee.
Super awkward, yeah.
Hi, Jaycee. And then I guess to my hypothetical right or in front of me, we
right in front of you. That'd be Shane.
To my left,
Smiskol.
yes.
Shane Smiskol.
Yeah.
How are you, Shane?
I am pretty fantastic. I might have been fired from my job.
Oh.
I don't know. I was 15 minutes late from the medium, and
very, very epic.
That's what's going on. If you wanted to know, I don't know if you did.
Well, I'm sure that'll make a lovely conversation after we're done with this podcast.
Oh yeah.
So my imaginary right, and who is not here, like I said before, is Anthony. But he did have some words for the movie that he explicitly told me not to read. In an attempt to make my reaction to his thoughts and our reaction to his thoughts as genuine as possible. Once we discuss what Anthony was talking about, we'd go straight into the film. Shane, keeping up with how I think this is the best way we can do this with our busy schedules. Shane has not seen the movie yet.
Nope.
But he is going to read a plot synopsis and then try to figure out for his own what he think the events of the movie are, and you probably get pretty close because as great of a movie this is, it is a very kind of historical epic. So you can imagine how things would go from there. So,
okay,
you guys want to hear what Anthony has to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I already know what he has to say.
You already know what he has to say?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, so okay. I'm opening a file on my phone called Do Not Read Until Recording from Sir Amphi Barbat. From Sir Antifreeze Hard Hat. Okay. It hasn't loaded yet. Oh, wait, no, it has loaded. The page is blank.
What?
There's more pages, dude.
It's actually
more
blank.
Pages.
The entire page is blank except for the very bottom where it says, in all lowercase, I haven't seen this movie, but I heard it's really good. Also, the cut from the match to the sunset is pretty awesome. Well, thank you for your wise words, Anthony.
I thought he was supposed to watch it.
Oh boy.
I'm sure we well.
No.
He heard it was great, so
yeah,
that's the next best thing.
I sent him a picture of a really cool scene in the movie, and he was like, "Man, I really wish I watched it now." I was like, "Yeah, it's really good.
It's very good." And we will discuss about it. Thank you, Anthony, for your wise words.
How long is it, though?
Almost 4 hours.
Yeah.
4 hours?
3 hours and 40. I watched it in 2 days.
Damn.
I watched it all today.
Yeah, but it's so worth it though. Like it seems so long, but it's honestly just because of the way it's. Anyways, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So Shane, you have a plot synopsis at the ready.
Yes.
I figured if you wanted to, you could go ahead and give that a read, and then kind of in your own mind formulate what you think the movie Lawrence of Arabia is about.
Okay, I will definitely try my hardest. Here we go. Okay, due to his knowledge of the native Bedouin tribes, British Lieutenant T.E. Lawrence is sent to Arabia to find Prince Faisal? Is that it? Okay, good. Yes. I got this time. And serve as a liaison between the Arabs and the British in their fight against the Turks. With the aid of native Sheriff Ali, Lawrence rebels against the orders of his superior officer and strikes out on a daring camel journey across the harsh desert to attack a well-guarded Turkish port.
So, Shane, with that plot synopsis in mind, knowing who T.E. Lawrence is, which if you don't know who T.E. Lawrence is, that's fine.
I just know he's Peter O'Toole.
It is Peter O'Toole. That's correct.
In the movie, yeah.
In the movie, yeah. No, Peter
O'Toole
real
life,
isn't actually
T.E. Lawrence.
So, that being said, what can you take away from that? What do you think the rest of this movie is about in the grand scheme of things?
I think the Arabs and the British are like a ally, right?
That's correct.
And they're both fighting against the Turks, but I have no idea why they're fighting the Turks and why the Turks are angry at them, what the whole feud is.
Well, that's history. If you don't know, I didn't know that, but that's just the Arabs and the Turkish weren't the biggest friends back in those times. To put it politely. You go ahead.
And he rebels against his orders from a superior officer? I thought he was on their side, though.
Well, that's what the movie's about.
That's what rebelling is.
Yes. Go ahead. Keep talking.
He's like, he rebelled against them, but like he's on their side, right?
Okay, go ahead.
And then he attacks the Turkish port, which is, I guess, what he's supposed to do. So I don't really understand. This is like a 2-sentence thing for me.
Well,
so I'm going to learn as we go.
Yes, and we can talk a little bit about what the movie is about. So, Lawrence of Arabia, like you read, is about, and Jaycee, you can pick up whenever I'm lost for words, because I can assure you I will be. The movie Lawrence of Arabia is about a gentleman by the name of T.E. Lawrence, who is like this kind of like military advisor in the, when does this take place? In like the 30s or 40s, Jaycee?
No, I think it's like World War One,
1910.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Sometime it takes place sometime, and essentially he is this.
He's kind
British
of like a misfit. Kind
of like if all of your army officers are these big tough stoic guys, T.E. Lawrence is like this very like smart, well thought, artful, thinks before he acts, yet also is kind of like a badass in the same way. He's like a really smart military advisor. That's kind of what he was remembered as. He's sent to Arabia on an intelligence mission to figure out what you read, what Prince Faisal is like, where he stands in the Arab-Turkish conflict, which the Arab-Turkish conflict, I'm not a history guy, so I'm not exactly sure what was going on, but they just weren't the best of friends. So they were fighting a lot, and the Arabs were on the British side. This is going to be the most interesting podcast because the first 20 minutes is just going to be a history lesson. And if we haven't already lost every single viewer, then thank you for staying with us. But essentially, he's sent to this place to figure out what's going on with Prince Faisal. Faisal? What? Faisal. And
other than that,
he kind of gets sucked into this civil war between the Arabs and the Turkish. I don't want to say civil war. That's probably an incorrect term. But ultimately, what he ends up doing is he kind of takes matters into his own hands because he notices that the British aren't really doing anything to support them. They're kind of just being like, yeah, you got this. But if you lose, just don't worry about it. And they're basically just giving them lots of pats on the back. And T.E. Lawrence kind of shows up and he's like, hey, you should do this. They're like, well, what are you talking about? He's like, no, but you should do this because if you do this, then you're going to have a better position. And essentially what he ends up doing is he kind of becomes this like prophet for the Arabs because he at least in terms of the movie, I know there's some historical accuracies. I haven't read into that a whole lot, but he becomes this like war leader and is like the strategic military council for the Arab fighters, and essentially is like most of the reason why they start to succeed in the war against the Turks. So yeah, that's the history lessons behind Lawrence of Arabia, and that's kind of what the movie's about. But that's kind of like a grand scheme of things, and it's really hard to break apart this movie and talk about it efficiently because it's 4 hours long, and while it's great, you're not really going to take in everything on the first watch because it's very, very, very dense, but also really intriguing. It says some stuff about race, it says some stuff about war, it says a lot of things, but in the end, it is very much just like a big, high-quality, epic drama set in Arabia, which seems like the most uninteresting place, but they find ways to make it really interesting. So, yeah. Jaycee, what are you thinking? If you have anything else to add to that, I'm sorry.
I don't know. I think you covered most of what I was kind of thinking.
Okay.
I think I just have more specific scenes in mind to talk about later on.
So do you think we just want to start at the beginning and we can kind of just move our way through there? Shane, do you have any questions?
Can I just say something real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Are we just going to ignore the fact that Sheriff Ali's actual last name is Sheriff?
Is Sheriff, yeah.
Sharif, yeah. Omar Sharif, yeah. Yeah, it's fine. It's meant to be. Omar Sharif also does really great in the movie. I will say this. It's 2018, and there are certain movies that I like that do this exact thing, and I don't really care. But there was something really weird about seeing Alec Guinness brown-faced and talk like an Arab, like you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi was sitting in robes and brown face and talking like he was from Arabia.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to watch. I must add. But ultimately he gives a really great performance in the movie. He really does. You kind of just forget about it after a while. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, anyways, so should we just start off at the beginning and kind of work our way through there and talk about things that we really enjoyed? Shane, if you feel the need to pop in at any moment, like your question, or you just want to say something or you want to add, please feel free.
Can I say something about the synopsis here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it says he rebels against his orders, and then he ends up attacking them anyway. So was he originally supposed to just serve as like the liaison and then not attack them?
Yes.
But then he goes on like this risky mission that could possibly fail, but ends up working.
His orders were to go in there and just figure out what the prince's deal was, like what he was planning on doing, how he was handling the war,
like not stir up anything.
Yeah, and he kind of shows up and turns into like an impromptu military advisor. And he's just like, this is how I think you should do this because it makes the most sense. And like he like legitimately is like he is like playing chess. Like he's like, I want to take some of your troops and I want to take them here so I can get troops here and then we can take over this place. And once we take over this place, the British will be like, yeah, you've got it under control. So then we can turn this into this whole thing and we can take back Arabia. And it's that's kind of rebelling. Ultimately turns into like a. He wins ultimately in the end. Not really, actually. By the end of it, he does some questionable things that really kind of have you looking at the whole situation in another way. But,
and he's also just like super messed up from it, so he's like, I don't know.
But he does kind of help them get Arabia back, but also doesn't, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But the most interesting thing about this, and I think the thing that really sucked me into the movie, is if you like movies, you've heard about Lawrence of Arabia. You've heard about Lawrence of Arabia, you've heard about Ben-Hur, you've heard about Casablanca, and you've heard about all these movies from like the 40s, 50s, and 60s that really like is a flag post in their era. Ben-Hur and I think and Lawrence of Arabia are the ones I hear from most in terms of like the first big historical blockbuster epic that really like covers a topic and makes it like something you just throw popcorn in your face. But the thing about this movie is that it's more than that. It also has a core. So you hear so much about this movie. You know, you have Peter O'Toole, who gives an amazing performance. I'll note on Peter O'Toole, and Jaycee, I'm sure you'll agree with this. There's something about his eyes. Like whenever the lights hit his eyes, just how bright blue they are. He's just like, doesn't matter the face he's making. You're just captivated, but why with what he has to say next.
Yeah.
It's tremendous. He
Like
gives a
one of
great
my
performance.
favorite scenes in the movie is when he takes his I don't remember the character's name, but it was like his servant.
Yeah, that's my favorite scene. In the
Yeah,
movie.
where he goes into the mess hall and goes to the bar, and it's just that whole, just his performance in that scene is just phenomenal.
It's remarkable. He really he's very gentle. The character of T.E. Lawrence is very gentle and he thinks before he talks. But during this one scene, Shane, there's a moment in which, leading up to it, where he's all cocky because he's just taken over this big place and he's about to head back to where the British are, and he's going to cross across this big desert with his two servants who are like kids, but they've gotten close to him.
Yeah.
So they're like, you're going to cross this desert all the way to Cairo, which is where the British are. And he's like, yeah, Moses did it. He's like, well, Moses was a prophet. And he's like, and he was Arab. And he's like, well, yeah, I mean, I got it. I think that's what he says. I don't know if he says, but he's basically showing that Lawrence is like, yeah, I have done all these things for the Arab people, and I'm a prophet, and I've led them in the revolution. So if Moses could do it, I could cross the sand with my two servants. And in the process, he leads one of his servants into a thing of quicksand and gets him killed. So he shows up back in Cairo with his other servant, and they're both sad and thirsty, and they lost all their camels, so they've just had one camel, and they're both tired. So Lawrence grabs his friend by the wrist, his servant by the wrist, who's kind of like, I guess, I don't want to say like a son, but he's a very close friend to him. And he walks him up the steps into the British Army building in front of all these British Army officers, which, racism. So it's all white people. They don't want this Arab kid there. And he walks him right up to the bar, and he slams his hand down on the table, and he says, "We want 2 glasses of lemonade, please." And they're like, "Oh no, you gotta go." And he gets really like an army officer comes up to him, and this is the first time you see him crack. He grabs his arm and he slams it away, and he stares at him, and he's really stern. And like I said, something about his eyes that really sell his performance. But ultimately, it's the first time where you see T.E. Lawrence not as cool. I got everything under control, and it's really incredibly powerful. Because slowly he's convincing everybody. He's like, I did this. I had this army take over this whole city where the Turkish were. Because
they just don't believe him.
Exactly,
He's like,
because
I took over whatever it's called, Aqaba, right?
Aqaba. Yeah, I think it's Aqaba.
They're like, that's impossible.
He's like, well,
nope,
I did it.
It's not.
So he gets some lemenade, and he's like, I want you to give this kid some sheets, let him sleep. He deserves it. I need to go talk to somebody. You need to listen to me. He's gone from dealing with everybody's shit to him just being like, listen, this is the law. This is how things need to be. I'm tired of it being like this. I've gone through too much shit for you to just push everybody I like aside. And it's super awesome. It's really, really satisfying. And you're really supporting him until the rest of the movie, where you're questioning every single thing he does.
Mm-hmm.
But to start at the beginning, you hear so much about Lawrence of Arabia, and how popular it is, and how cool T.E. Lawrence is, and how great of a performance Peter O'Toole gives. But in the end, you start the movie, and surprise, surprise, he dies in the first 5 minutes.
Wait, who dies?
T.E. Lawrence, the main character. Boom, dead.
Oh.
5 minutes.
But why does he die, and how does he come back?
So he doesn't come back. That's the thing.
Wait, what?
Is he a ghost?
No.
How does he die? And how does he come back?
And it's this really cool opening credit montage where he's just getting prepared to ride on his motorcycle. And he gets on his motorcycle, and the credits end, and then he drives away. And he's driving, and it's just really intense. In Phantom Thread, when he drives and they lock the camera on the back of the car. He shows up, and he's driving, and he sees these 2 kids, and he's like, oh, I don't want to kill these kids. And he swerves, and he flips into some trees, and the next thing you know, we're at his funeral. Boom. T.E. Lawrence is dead. Just like that. And all these people are commending him, oh, he's such a great guy. Some people are like, I don't really know about that. He was kind of, he didn't really do a whole lot for America. And then boom, bam, we just cut into T.E. Lawrence at a military base, which is what I have to commend the most about this movie is how well it's edited. It kind of reminds me of Blade Runner, where everything is purposefully drawn out to the very, very last second. And then some things are just not explained at all. Like there's no title card saying that we flash back. It just cuts back and it expects you to fill in the blanks.
So
and it's really cool.
That's like the end of the movie in the beginning?
Yeah. Huh. It's kind of crazy. Ultimately, it doesn't flash back to him at the end, like being dead, like in a movie like Beckett, which Peter O'Toole is also in. But he just dies at the beginning, and then it's like, okay, this is his story now. And then he's given this mission, and I'm sure we'll have so much to say about this, but there's this incredible match cut that happens about 20 minutes into the movie that's basically signals the start of his journey. And he blows out, he lights a match, and then he goes to blow out this match, and he blows it out, and as he blows it out, it just, boom, cuts straight into the sunset of Arabia for the first time we see it, with like this roaring score with all this percussion. And it's so subtle, and they don't make a big deal about it, but it's so powerful. And every single like film student ever probably talks about this cut, but watching it for the first time without like seeing it on a video essay is super captivating. It's like it's something as simple as one scene changing to another with the assist of an action, but it's very like how would you describe it, Jaycee? I'm kind of running out of words.
I don't know. I think I would describe it more as like, oh, I just heard myself. What the hell? I don't know. It's just such a perfect way to just keep you just engrossed in the movie, and I think that's really where it just starts picking up, because it just, you're there and you're like, okay, what's going on? And then he gets his mission, and then just that cut, it's just so seamless. It's not like, oh, we're getting on a truck or something to go over here in Arabia, and it's not like that. It's just like, just seamless, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't really announce itself, but it makes it so grandiose at the same time.
That's what's really great about it.
Yeah. And really, there's a lot of cuts like that. There's a lot of times where like dust will fill up a screen, and the next thing you know, or another, it just cuts and somebody comes out of the dust. Or there's another great shot where someone's on a horse and they say something to the camera, and then he rides away, and we hold on, because it's like a low angle, and we hold on the sky, and then the camera pans down and we're in a different place. It's so cool. It's very, it's
like the kind of edits that we would do in AV and just home videos and stuff like that.
Yeah, stuff like that.
There is a reminder for Shane.
Uh-oh. What?
Oh. Shane?
Is that Alexa?
Yeah,
Hello,
that was Google Home. I'm sorry.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you have Google Home too? What the hell, dude?
Okay, it should be quiet. Shut up, Google.
That's good.
Okay.
It's probably about to beep at us.
Really,
That worked.
I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Yeah, you talk about your favorite scene. I'm gonna ramble on forever about unimportant stuff, so you go ahead.
I don't know if it's like, it's got to be one of my favorite scenes. I have a few probably in the movie, but
as do I.
the first one I had in the very beginning, whenever he's being guided by his Bedouin guide boy.
Yeah, I forgot about the guide boy.
Whenever Sharif Ali shows up, and they're drinking out of that well that they're not supposed to be drinking out of, and he looks up at his guide, and he sees him looking out in the distance, and he's just like, what? And he like turns around, and it's just that shot of like the heat waves, and you just barely see something, and it's just such a long.
Ooh, I forgot
perfect.
about that. It's very
so
very
perfect.
suspenseful. You're watching it, and he gets closer, and like his
you
guide
just see it
is
growing
kind of getting a little anxious, and you're like, what's about to happen? There's a lot of moments like that where there's like a lot of dramatic irony where everything gets really quiet and nothing's really happening, and you can just tell by the way the scene is being staged that something is about to happen.
Yeah.
And then something does happen, and it's very unfortunate. I felt that on that scene, and I felt that when one of his, like I was saying in the quicksand, when one of his two counterparts dies. I was like, oh damn, like that's like you can feel it. You can feel when something's about to happen, and then it just hits you like a truck, and it's very sad.
It's just
in my dad. I think ultimately the most captivating character arc is the one of Lawrence. By the way, if you have never heard this podcast before, welcome to it, because we change gears every 5 minutes. I think it has his character arc is very captivating, because at the beginning you're like, oh, he's gonna be the cool, like almost like cool, like rogue military guy who's gonna show up and prove to all the people why he's wrong, and he's gonna save the underdogs, and he does. But then he lets it get to his head. And then he lets it get to his head, and then he gets people killed. And then he's ultimately like, I don't deserve to be here. Which, okay, I will say this, and I'll ask you, Jaycee, what you thought about this. Him going from, I'm not Arab, so I can't help you guys, to the army general being like, you're important. And then he turns into like a tremendous asshole, felt confusing. It just felt like he spent 10 minutes telling himself that he didn't need to be a part of the war, and he was humble, and then he talked to the general, and he was like, oh, well, I'm doing it for the money, and I can be surrounded by wealth, and I'm also a brutal murderer. It felt unnatural. To give some context to you, Shane, essentially what happens is Lawrence goes back and forth from feeling like a prophet to feeling like not a prophet, to feeling like a god, to feeling like he doesn't deserve to be with the Arab people because he's not an Arab himself, to going to like this like he's surrounded by these bodyguards that are paid, and then like goes on a brutal murdering rampage.
And so he's commanding all these Arabs that he wasn't even supposed to at this point.
I mean, yeah, basically, he basically has his own army, essentially. So what happens is, when he first starts commanding these Arabs, he's very humble, but he's also just trying to help them. And then once he does it for so long, he gets shot at one point in the arm and falls off this train, and this Turkish soldier is like shooting at him, and he just stands there because he believes he's not going to die that, because he thinks he's a prophet. But then what happens is, ultimately the soldiers are like, you're just here for the British. And he's like, no, I'm like your prophet. So then some stuff happens with the Turkish, which involves him getting tortured, and the Turkish people point out, like, you're white. And he's like, oh yeah,
I forgot.
I am. And I've been acting like this whole time like I'm an Arab. So he leaves, and he goes back to his general, and he's like, hey, general, I'm done with this. I don't want to fight for them anymore. I don't want to fight for you guys. Just give me a normal job. And he's like, whoa, what are you talking about? You got army stuff to do. You're too damn important.
He's like, we got the big push on Damascus or whatever.
Exactly.
And he's like, I don't want to be a part of that.
Yeah. And then the confusing part comes in when then he has a talk with the general, and he's like, I don't want to do it. I can't. It's personal. And he's like, you have to.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And I'm gonna help them. And then you're like, wait, what? And then it cuts, and he like arrives with this like bounty hunter escort, and he looks all like wealthy, and he's dressed up in these nice robes, and he's like not talking to his friends, and he's being weird. And I understand what they're trying to say, but it just felt like it came out of left field.
Yeah, I can see that.
That was the only thing I noticed. I was just lost as to how he made 2 character turns in 15 minutes. But ultimately, what ends up coming out of that is they have their big final battle at Damascus. Actually, they don't even have it at Damascus. They catch a the Turks are leaving. Like they are running.
They're retreating.
They're running away. They're all hurt and injured. And this one bounty hunter, or maybe he was an Arab soldier anyways, that the Turkish people just ran through his village. He goes to get revenge, and he gets shot. And
Lawrence he's like, no prisoners. And runs in and gets murdered.
And Lawrence, like, in a blind fit of rage, which you also find out throughout the movie that Lawrence doesn't put it off this way, but he makes it clear to his superior officers that, like, secretly inside he kind of has some bloodlust. Like, he has to execute some people, And he tells his army general, he's like, there was something about it that I hated that I didn't want to tell you. And he's like, well, that's fine. You had to kill people. It's whatever. He's like, no, that's not what I'm telling you, sir. He's like, I enjoyed it. Like, I enjoyed having to execute that person that I didn't want to secretly. But in the inside, I enjoyed it. So you're kind of hinted at the fact that he has this weird secret bloodlust. And that is, like, confirmed by the end of the movie, which in a G movie, it gets kind of graphic.
Yeah, for real, dude.
Where
what the
he's
hell's
like,
up with that?
yeah, like at the very end, they like basically slaughter all these wounded people, and he's
they're
like
all running, and they're
he's
just
like running around, and Lawrence is like he's like double tapping motherfuckers from like point blank range. He's like running up to them with a pistol.
It's awful.
Like, gah, gah, gah.
Like that one guy just has his hands up, and he just shoots him right in the face. I was like,
yes.
whoa, dude.
It's insane. Like he goes on this insane blood rust, and he's like he looks crazy in the face, and he's covered in
blood rust.
Blood Rust. It's my that's the name of my new video game company.
Dang.
Blood Rust.
But he goes on this crazy rampage, and you're watching him like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So
even Sharif is like that.
Yeah.
He's like Lawrence, and he's like telling him to stop, and he just keeps running, and he's just like, dude,
he's completely
stop.
lost in it. Which I think is, I'll have to definitely, sorry, that's probably a nightmare for the microphone. I'll probably have to watch the movie again to kind of get an idea of the inner turmoil of Lawrence, because you can tell that by the end of it, he hates it.
Yeah.
But there's just something inside of him that wants him to succeed and be like, I gave the people this because I'm their prophet. So like part of him kind of just snaps on the inside, and he just starts gadding motherfuckers. And he kind of loses everything. And then ultimately he finally like gives the Arab people what they want. 3.5 hours of a movie of him finally like getting the Turks to leave, and the two sides of the two different, I guess, religions. Is that how you would put it, Jaycee?
Tribes.
Tribes. That's what it is. Two different tribes of the Arabs are like, okay, let's get together in Damascus, which is kind of like the county, not the county, the capital.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, we're going to get together. We're going to have this council, and we are going to talk it up. But all they do is argue the entire time. Like both tribes, they just argue the whole time, and they can't come up to an agreement. So what do, Shane?
What do?
They leave. All the tribes leave. Leaving Lawrence and Sharif and all these people just there to like, it was all for nothing, because ultimately they freed it, but the fundamental problem of the of them is that the tribes could never get along. Like you find out at the very beginning that who ends up kind of being Lawrence's friend, he shoots a guy because he was an Arab from a different tribe that was drinking out of his well.
Yeah.
Just for drinking out of his well, he shoots him and kills him. So by the end of this, they just can't come to an agreement. And the sad part about it is that Lawrence is kind of just left sitting there alone in his failure. And Sharif's kind of trying to talk to him, and he can't, which comes to this really emotional scene where he leaves the palace that Lawrence is kind of in, and he's crying, which is, if you watch the movie, this character is like a very like intense, like serious guy, because in the end he tells the guy that he's talking to, he's like, why are you crying? He's like, well, it's because you love him, don't you? And he's like, no, it's because I'm afraid of him. Because it's kind of impossible to see what he's up to at this point. It's this movie, man. I wish I had a reading book next to me that delved into the themes of the movie while I also talked about it and watched the movie again, because it's so dense and it's very it just has so much. It's a 4-hour movie. There's no way that we're going to be able to crush our synopsis of it in the first 4 hours.
Yeah, it's an epic for sure.
It's an epic. Now that's something we can put not lightly at all. This movie is epic. I honestly, if you took out the scenes where they're traveling across the desert, this movie would be 2.5 hours long. There's a solid hour and 15 minutes just dedicated to like not being quick. Like if they have to travel across the desert, you don't get a 3-scene montage of them here. You follow them for 30 minutes. they make an event out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if Mad Max happened in real time.
Yeah, basically.
They make an event out of it, like them crossing over the desert to get to what is it, Akiba?
Yeah,
that's like 45 minutes of the movie. It's but it's like entertaining. Like you kind of just find yourself watching it, and it's almost like you're living it. That's one thing I can really commend about this movie is since it's so slow and since it really takes its time with everything, it just feels like you're with these characters the whole way through.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. What do you think, Jaycee? Do you have anything to add? I've been talking a lot.
I don't know. I just love the slow part of it. I really love that they just didn't cut too much.
Slower than Blade Runner?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Or was there as many nosebleeds?
No, there was no nosebleeds. There was a few yawns. There was a few bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
But no nosebleeds. And I say yawn in just not in like I was bored.
Yeah, no,
just,
yeah.
It's a long
It's
movie.
pretty tiring to watch, honestly.
It really is, emotionally.
In like the best way possible.
Yeah,
but
for sure. For sure. What do you have any questions, Shane?
I don't think, except, so his bloodlust was so strong that he directly disobeyed orders to work with the Arabs and killed some of them?
No, he doesn't kill Arabs.
Well, I thought you said somebody drank out of his well, or was that...
No. Okay, so the reason the Arabs, because you know how at the end of the movie I was talking about how they ultimately there's a few Arab tribes, but the two that are working with Lawrence primarily can't agree on what to do with the capital, so they just both leave.
Mm-hmm.
To give you an example of how they don't get along at all and how the two differing tribes are basically at war with each other and have like a very strict guideline on how they feel about each other. To give you an example, I was saying Lawrence is traveling with this guide at the very beginning of the movie who is from a different tribe than he ends up working with. And they stop at this well and this guy's drinking water and someone from a differing tribe shows up and he's like, hey, you're not in my tribe. This well is for our tribe. And he shoots him. And Lawrence is kind of just like, what?
Oh, also I really like that line in that scene where he's like, what is your name, Englishman? And he's like, my name is for my friends, or something. I think that was the line. It's something like that, but it's just it's a really cool moment.
So, Jaycee, what are some of your favorite scenes? Because I know we were talking about this earlier. We have a few scenes that we both agree on are really fundamental and really impactful.
Yeah, so obviously that scene is really great because it's just such an interesting way to introduce a character like that. Because it's just like immediately right off the bat, they already have that rivalry thing going on because he just shot his friend right in front of him. And then later on, they end up meeting again whenever they're discussing war. What would you say? Tactics, I guess.
Yeah. Tactics, strategies.
Yeah. And then I don't know what another one of my favorite scenes is. I had a lot of really favorite shots, and most of them included sunsets or sunrises.
Sunsets. The sunsets. This movie, me and Jaycee were talking about this. It doesn't feel like it was shot in the 60s. It feels so like new. It just everything is so like your eyes just widen. You feel like you're watching something that has like 4K like pixels.
Mm-hmm.
Like the resolution's just insane. And it was all shot on film because it was in 62. The movie was made in 62. It was very ahead of its time for editing, for just its overall scope. It was one of the, I would say Ben-Hur was probably the first. No, to be fair, Star Wars was the first big blockbuster, but Ben-Hur is like the first big historical epic that was like, we can do huge movie action set pieces. And Lawrence of Arabia is kind of fits in that scene. Let me make sure Ben-Hur didn't come out after Lawrence of Arabia. It might have. No, it came out 3 years earlier.
Oh, damn.
Not the remake, though, which is totally useless.
Yeah, the remake. Oh, God.
Came out
Usually.
Yeah.
The one that nobody cares about.
I can't wait till they remake Lawrence of Arabia with like some awful actor.
With Ben Hardy.
Yeah.
He's not an awful actor, but that would be really funny if it was Ben Hardy.
That
It's just like
that
Mad
works
Max,
so well. Wow. Ben Hardy or Tom Hardy.
That would be like really cool, actually.
Tom Hardy is Lawrence. That would be interesting.
Yeah. I could see that. I think I meant Tom Hardy. Why did I say Ben Hardy?
Well, Ben Hardy is the guy from the X-Men films, and he's blonde, and he looks a lot more
yeah.
I think Ryan Gosling should
that's
be the
probably
guy.
what I was thinking.
I'd watch it.
Ryan Gosling. See, okay, I love Ryan Gosling, but he definitely has a very limited range. That's let me rephrase that. You can only see Ryan Gosling as so many people. I don't think I could see Ryan Gosling as, hello, I'm T.E. Lawrence.
I think he could definitely pull it off though, because he's just his acting would fit with that because he is very good at just acting with like his face.
I guess that's correct. Yeah,
but still, it'd be probably kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting. I could tell you that.
Oh yeah.
Let's say this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so ultimately, this is Lawrence of Arabia. It's a classic. It's a movie that if you have 4 hours, honestly, I don't even care if you don't have 4 hours. Watch this movie in like a week. Seriously, it's just that great. It's kind of like you could splice this thing up into like 40-minute episodes, and you could call it like a HBO TV show. Mm-hmm. It's so epic. It defines the word epic. It sprawls so many locations, interesting characters, great messages, interesting action sequences. It's kind of violent. It's violent in a way where it's like you don't see guts falling. It's not Save It Private Ryan, but just like performances and the way blood is used. It's scary. Mm-hmm. Especially for a movie it's pretty tame for his violence, at least not until the end, which Lawrence is like the barrel stuffing dudes. But ultimately, this movie is a masterpiece in every way, and I think it deserves any single amount of praise because you can see its influence in so many other things. I think the movie's perfect. I think it's a straight 10.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it will be a classic forever.
Yes.
Now, Shane, from what we've said, would you watch this movie?
Like you said, if you split it up between a few days, possibly, maybe I would watch it.
It's really...
I'm not that into like history types of movies.
I mean, honestly, I'm not either. There's just something about the way the movie starts that really, it kind of grabs you.
I honestly forgot that.
Does it not feel
it was
like
based off of real stuff?
It like I said, it feels very real. Since it's so long and since it just holds out everything, it feels very real. It just kind of
when you're watching it, well, at least for me, I didn't even think about it actually being a real thing. I was like, oh yeah, all of this is fictional. But then you think about it afterwards, you're like, oh yeah, that's okay. Like it's weird.
Exactly.
They didn't
it's just that
dramatize
well
anything.
done.
Like that's the actual history.
I think
I'm sure there was some.
I think they took some liberties.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it because
that's something else we'd have to read into.
Yeah.
They definitely took some liberties with the casting. Again, Obi-Wan Kenobi plays an Arab man.
Star Wars. They have like a split universe.
No, Shane.
Whoa.
No.
Radical.
But yeah, ultimately, I think the movie is perfect. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's one of the best movies of all time. A classic by every means. It might seem like I'm wrapping this up for the end of the episode, but after what we were just talking about, I think we could do something fun here. Jaycee, what do you think about the movie?
Yeah, honestly, 10 out of 10. I watched it. I was going to watch it over the course of 2 days, but I woke up pretty early this morning and I went and got me some donuts and then came back and
sat down, kicked back.
Yeah, and just watched it, and I just never wanted to stop watching it because I was like, yeah, this is
incredible.
Great. It's phenomenal.
Now, I was interested in all the cool transitions you guys are talking about.
Yeah,
do you have any good examples?
Oh, yeah.
Just like Google some scene transitions.
There were some beautiful shots in the movie too. It's so good.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
What was that one movie where this guy is on a bridge and
Stay. Don't
Yeah.
stop. Shh. 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 Oh
What?
no.
What?
If you're watching this, oh boy, you spoiled the whole twist of that movie.
We could cut that out.
You can just we can lots of redacted, just lots
But
of.
how did the transitions compare to
redacted.
that? Because I remember there was a couple of cool ones in there.
Well, they're two completely different kind of styles of movies. I will say in this one that it's less like dreamy. And just
I was
for the
about to
record, we're
say,
talking about a
that's-
movie Stay, which is very dreamy and kind of doesn't make sense for the plot of the movie, which hopefully we didn't just spoil and it was something was edited out of there. Also, we need to do an episode on Stay. Jaycee, I feel like we've said this before.
I believe.
We
I'd like
need
that.
to do an episode on Stay. It is probably the most underrated movie of all time. It is genius. It's Stay. Ewan McGregor, Ryan Gosling, Naomi Watts. If you're listening to this, go watch it right now. You might not understand it at first, but watch it again after you watch it the first time. Or pay attention. That's fun too.
Yeah, pay attention.
The movie
Paying
is
attention to movies is
amazing,
cool.
And I'm glad we found a way to sneak it in at the end of our Lawrence of Arabia review. But seriously, Shane, have you watched it recently?
2 years ago, I think.
Yeah,
Around
it's
there.
so good. It's so good. Audience at home, watch it. We should do an episode on it sometime. For the last couple of minutes, I figured this would be fun. I was just thinking about this. Maybe it won't be. Maybe we'll just edit out this whole segment. If Hollywood woke up one day and he said, damn, we need to make some money, and some 75-year-old man in the back of the room said, you need to remake Lawrence of Arabia. Let's try to pitch the remake for Lawrence of Arabia.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Boom. Where's our setting? Are we keeping it in like the 1940s? Are we going to put it into a different time period? Are we going to put it in modern times? Are we going to put it in the
We
future?
obviously have to put it in modern times and make it kind of like a metaphor.
Yes, exactly.
Sounds like modern Star Wars, slightly.
It honestly, it kind of is. We put it in modern times. We throw in a lot of overtly political statements. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And
Of
my
course,
God, if we whitewash this movie, how dare we? Okay, Hollywood, we are monsters for not casting actual racially appropriate people in these roles. So we're gonna do that. Okay.
Yes.
We're gonna do that. All right. So that being said, who plays R.T.E. Lawrence? Legitimately.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan
Yes.
Gosling is
Okay.
okay. Yeah.
We have to write all this down.
If we convince Ryan Gosling to star in our Lawrence of Arabia remake,
Quick, what's his number?
what's his number? Okay, so if we can't, who's our backup? You always have to have a backup.
Ben Hardy.
Ben Hardy.
Ben Hardy, dude.
is our Lawrence of Arabia. Gotcha. We'll completely not jumppart his career.
Yeah.
Look at the guy that starred in the Ben-Hur remake.
How about Ben
Nobody's heard
Affleck?
of him. Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Too soon.
For who? For Lawrence?
For Lawrence, I feel like he's too old though. You kind of need like a very like kind of almost like a
Very young.
We can
boy.
get his brother.
Pine. Chris Pine. Let's get
Ooh.
Chris Pine.
Oh, yeah, dude, Chris Pine. That's like perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
Paul
we get
Rudd.
Chris
Let's
Pine.
get Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd. So we get Chris Pine. Okay, because he's got the suave, but he's also got the acting chops. All right.
Yeah.
Have you seen Hell or High Water? That guy can act.
Yes.
So Chris Pine is our Lawrence.
Chris Pratt could be one of the servants or something.
So who directs it? How do we take this? Who directs it?
Steven
get somebody-
Spielberg.
Do we get somebody up and coming? Do we convince Steven Spielberg to do it? No, Steven Spielberg.
Yes.
He's got too much credibility to do a Lawrence of Arabia remake. He's not going to want to.
I think that'd be
he's not gonna
perfect
wanna
for him because he's doing
should
it's like a new style for him.
Yeah, but but he's too like fundamentally impacted by that movie to remake it. So who ends up doing it?
Quentin Tarantino. And it's
That's
just a
the first thing I thought
gruesome.
of.
It's just a
bloody-
gruesome. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, so we get Quentin Tarantino to come back for his 11th movie because he said he was only going to make 10.
Yeah.
We have him on the director's chair for our Lawrence of Arabia remake, starring Chris Pine. Now, so does that mean Quentin writes his own movie?
Maybe.
Because if Quentin writes his own movie, this is taking place during the Civil War.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it could be a crossover between Django and Chained. All right. Django is... This is so stupid. So if not Quentin Tarantino, then who else?
Denis Villeneuve, and it would be phenomenal.
There it is.
Who?
We get Denis.
That's what you were going to say.
His Dune remake falls. It explodes. He can't remake Dune, so he ends up remaking another movie. He remakes Lawrence of Arabia. That'd actually be great.
That would probably be
So wait,
amazing.
so now that we have Denis Villeneuve, you know he's going to want to be difficult, and he's going to want to do it in the original time period of the actual movie, because you know
true.
those desert shots. You get Roger Deakins to be a cinematographer.
Oh, yeah.
Those desert
absolutely.
shots are going to crush. Okay, so we got Denis, we got Roger Deakins, we got Chris Pine. Okay, we can just grab any screenwriter. Let's just who do we get here?
How about Aziz
screenwriter.
Ansari?
Aziz Ansari. How
It's
about we
a
get
comedy.
an actual screenwriter?
Well, there has to be a little of
Aaron
little
Sorkin.
comedic relief in there.
We get
like,
Aaron Sorkin.
Marvel
We get
style,
Aaron Sorkin.
maybe.
We get Aaron Sorkin. That's who we get. He has comedy. He writes real gritty dialogue. Aaron Sorkin can write Lawrence of Arabia. Okay, there might be 15-minute long monologues by Chris Pine about politics, overtly political things. This sounds okay.
We just reach and get William Goldman.
We go back in time a few years. We get Will.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. Okay, we resurrect. We resurrect William Goldman from the dead. Okay, for those of you who don't know, William Goldman wrote Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, The Princess Bride, The President's
dead?
Men. I think he's dead, isn't he? He wrote. He basically he wrote
Hang on, let me look.
all of your favorite movies from the 60s and 70s.
William Goldman. Dead.
Dead? When he die?
Can we get
he
Jeff
didn't die. He's still
Goldblum?
alive.
That was
William
hilarious.
Goldman's alive.
Oh, he
That's
is?
awkward.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
So we get William
He's 87
Goldman.
years old.
He writes the movie for us. Okay. Honestly, this movie sounds pretty good. So who is our Sharif?
Or who?
Ooh.
Jeff Goldblum?
No, what's his name?
From where's
Michael
he from?
Shannon. and we spray tan him.
We spray tan him. Ooh, okay. So we're gonna start making the no. Michael Shannon can play his like superior officer, like the guy who his military advisor that goes to Arabia with him. He's like, "What are you doing, Lawrence?"
Who's that guy from? He looks just like him. Hang on. I have to look it up now because I don't know his name.
Wow, this is honestly sounding amazing. We get that the movie ends in a 30-minute intense action sequence, lots of blood because it's Denis Villeneuve.
Yes.
Lots of blood. This is incredible.
That would be.
Once you grab this name, I think we're just about done with rebooting this incredible franchise.
Oh no! You know who we need for the guy from the other tribe that like shows up?
Yeah.
What's his name? Like Auda or whatever?
For the gold?
Auda. Yeah. That should be Al Pacino. Obviously.
Yes, it's perfect. It's perfect. Oh my
Yes.
gosh. And then who's the king or the prince? Actually, you know what we do? Is Omar Sharif still alive? The guy who played Sheriff.
I can find out.
He'd be pretty old by then, though.
If he is, he just
No,
plays the prince.
he died 2015.
Oh,
Darn.
damn it.
How old was he?
He was
Old. Anyways, wow, this sounds amazing. Hollywood, if you're listening, you're welcome, because we just handed you the next movie that will completely make $0 in the box office. We just handed it to you on the silver platter. You can call it Blade Runner 2050.
2050, yeah.
Yeah, and then Denis can just be sad because another one of his movies didn't make as much money as Warner Brothers wanted. So that
Feels
being
bad.
so that being said, yeah, this is talking pictures with talking pictures. This was kind of a guerrilla approach to the way we usually do our episodes. This movie's really long. It's really hard to talk about. We're just ultimately we kind of just want to bring you guys into how we discuss movies, and this is really kind of how we do it. But our opinions on the film, which I think we can all agree, except just me and Jaycee, because Shane hasn't seen it. Shane, from what you heard of it, do you think the movie is worth watching?
Possibly. It's just the time factor for me.
It's a time factor. I think me and Jaycee can both agree that this movie truly is a masterpiece. Would you agree with that, Jaycee? What do you have to say about the film? I know we've talked about it.
I would absolutely agree that it's a masterpiece, and gotcha. I think that it's way ahead of its time whenever it was released.
Absolutely.
And I think if it came out today,
how was it received when it came out?
Probably.
It won Best Picture, won Best Director.
Oh, that's right. It did win Best Picture.
But yeah, I think movies like this can't be made anymore. 4-hour epics. Just in the social media age, people just don't have a 4-hour attention span.
Yeah, that's very true.
Which is upsetting because this movie really does excel from its time factor. But that being said, thank you very much for listening. I hope you made it this far. This isn't exactly the most exciting episode. We did have to talk a lot about history. This is more like talking history pictures with talking pictures. That was a really funny joke, Coley. But I hope it was fun to listen to. Anthony's points really made an impact on us. I'm so glad he could.
He just sent a text to us reminding us to say hi to the 4 people that are listening. For him.
4 people are listening. Well, hi. How are you guys doing? I'm sure you've all left by now because it felt like you were in history class again. But if you haven't,
get me out of here.
If you haven't,
we greatly appreciate it.
We greatly appreciate it, and we hope you have a wonderful lunch.
Or
tell your mom about that one time you listened to a bunch of film students talk about a movie on a podcast.
Sure, she'll be very impressed.
Tell all your friends, get as many views as you can. Live the YouTube life, and we'll see you next year when we have 4 more subscribers.
Sweet.
But all jokes aside, thank you guys very much for listening. It's been a pleasure. And as always, don't forget to check into our season sponsor, New Order, brought to you by the song Blue Monday. All hail New Order.
Can I pull it up?
No, I don't want to get copyright striked.
I'm just going to play like 10 seconds.
No, I don't want to get copyright striked. Shane, don't you do it.
Okay, that's it. That's all I had.
Okay.
We're good.
But yeah.
Very cool.
But yeah, that's it. I'm out of jokes to make. I hope you all have a pleasant evening. Thank you for listening. My name is Coley Irving. To my fake left of me,
I'm Jaycee, Flowerree.
Jaycee, Flowerree.
And then to my left, not really, but
that would be Smiskol. Shane Smiskol.
Smiskol Shane.
Shane.
Man, I wish we all had
Shaken, not
sick
stirred.
rapper names. Jaycee, what was your sick rapper name? You had a sick rapper name. I remember.
J-Flow.
J-Flow. Oh my god.
Perfect, because it's my first initial and then last 4. Yeah, no, the first 4 letters of my last name.
I've been C Shizzles, and to the left of me,
I am Shane Whiskers. I don't know.
Shane Whiskers, and then lastly we have
J-Flow, home dog.
Yeah, home slice. Man, we're right. Anyways,
what's Anthony?
This is he's something.
A
bat. He's
a bat. The bat.
Yeah.
That being said, I hope you all have a wonderful time. We are talking pictures. We enjoy doing this. Watch all of our videos. Tell all your friends about it. Please. Please.
Yes.
Please.
Please. Please. Please do that.
Please. We need it. We need the views. Anyways, on that note.
All right.
See ya,
bye
man.
guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.